Anytime.
I'm Alexa Bell.
I'm Han Bui.
Norma Castillo.
I'm David Ringo.
Everyone knows who the principal investigator is, right? Norma?
No.
Okay. So, we are the Clean Water Association.
So we would Clean Water Association, or CWA. Our main goal is to be able to replace current desalination techniques that will be mentioned later on for graphene membrane, which would be cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And our long-term goal would be the replacement of current techniques with graphene membranes. So desalinization is done by putting energy to be able to turn salt water into fresh water. And the way this is done is mainly two different methods. One of which is thermal technologies, which is pretty much just putting in energy to make it evaporate and get the salt out. And the other one is membrane technologies, which is just pumping water through a membrane to get all the stuff out. Graphene desalinization is kind of like membrane technologies, in which it's kind of like a membrane, but it's a very small membrane, so it's a lot more efficient, and that's why we think it's better. So, the benefits of graphene. Well, they pretty much all revolve around the same thing. The fact that, as you can see in the picture, it's a very, very tiny sheet, and the sheet has pores, you can kind of see it right there, that lets water go through, but bigger molecules like these aren't allowed to go through. And this makes it a lot more energy efficient, because usually membranes are much, much thicker, so you have to put in a lot more energy to have to push water through it. So you end up getting the same amount of water, a lot more water for the same amount of energy that you put in, or you can put in more energy to get a lot more water than you would normally. And this is a little chart that we made, and graphene will also be very cost efficient, because as you can see, to get what regular means is just that, how you get fresh water just from a stream, or any just regular fresh water without having to do anything, and just getting it like that. That's how much it costs. It costs I think it was $150 or $160 for 1,000 gallons. And then using desalinization techniques, just thermal or regular graphene membranes, it costs about 4.5, 4.6 also. But graphene technologies, however, would be comparable to that of regular, just getting fresh water normally.
All right, and some of you might be thinking, why should something like the CWA be made, or what's its purpose? Well, we basically want to help bring and provide clean water to impoverished countries, because as the population grows at such a fast rate, we are actually using water at a much greater rate than which it replenishes normally. And even though a lot of countries like Israel are located by the Mediterranean Sea, the water that they have at their disposal is not adequate in its quality. So they usually have to heat up the water so they can purify it, so they could use it normally for bathing or drinking or any other ways. And that's in Israel, but here in the United States, the cost of fresh water has actually increased 6% in major cities like here in Austin, Houston, and other large cities of that sort. And in 2010, I believe, the overall cost of getting water, the monthly bill, raised 33%. So what you would regularly be paying $45 was now $60 per month. And that's in a place where clean water is actually a lot easier to get. So in other countries where it's not as easy, the cost of getting water is much greater and higher and more expensive. So since it's becoming harder to get water at a cheap rate, we have to come up with new sophisticated ways of getting this clean water. The reason that we really back graphene membranes is like the chart that Alexa showed. Using a graphene membrane instead of traditional desalinization methods, it would honestly cost about the same as getting regular water, just getting it from the tap as if it were from the sea. you wouldn't have to pay extra to really purify or get the proper adequate water that you need.
So you guys are probably wondering how we're going to create the Clean Water Association. The first step in creating the Clean Water Association is establishing a business plan. The business plan is very important because it's going to framework how we're going to build our organization. And without a framework, it's just going to fall apart. So the difference between creating a business plan and a nonprofit organization is that business plans involve stocks, shareholders, and revenue, like for personal profit. Nonprofit organizations are for the benefit of the public or the general welfare of people. So without a business plan, we would not be able to make more revenues than expenses. We need the revenues to provide money to the charitable organizations that we're funding, graphene membranes. And we're not really looking for personal benefit here. We're trying to help everyone else, especially the impoverished countries around us. The executive summary is just the main purpose and our goal for our organization, and that's pretty much providing financial support and increasing the awareness for the use of graphene membranes for water desalination. So the structure of our organization, how it's going to be built, is going to be in subcommittees. The subcommittees are outreach, fundraising, social, community service, and impact. There will be an executive chair for each subcommittee, meaning that each one of us is going to get together to make the executive council to govern the CWA. Yes.
So I would be the executive chair for the outreach program. And so pretty much the outreach program would just be trying to go into the Austin community and like actually getting people like aware of our cause and also recruiting new members.
I'd be the head of fundraising, and that's basically, I feel like it's the most important one, because if we don't have the money, we're not going to be able to go anywhere. And then we usually do like bake sales, maybe in front of Gregory, but like in a bigger scale over the years, we will apply for sponsorships, loans, stuff like that.
I would represent the executive chair for the community service branch, and that's pretty much another outlet aside from fundraising for graphene membranes to help the local Austin community and on campus.
And I would be in charge of the impact subcommittee, and the impact subcommittee is a subcommittee that's in charge of showing you the statistics and the numbers of how we're actually making a difference into the progression and advancement of graphene membrane and more sophisticated ways of desalinization.
I'd be in charge of the social aspect of it. Basically, what I would do is create like activities for the public. So host sporting events, socials, have dinners and stuff. Just like get the word out that like we exist, and get people involved and try to get them interested in the program.
And then after we finish creating our business plan, the next step is going corporate. This is probably by far the most boring part of creating an organization. We have to first choose a legal business name, the Clean Water Association, and then we need to have bylaws to govern our organization, such as creating subcommittees. And then after that, we have to file these state corporation documents. I'm not going to read them all because they're right here. And once we get that approved, we can finally apply for tax exemption. Tax exemption allows us to officially become a non-profit organization because we have to find financial security from the government without taxes to increase the longevity of our organization. Meaning, you don't have to deal with stockholders, shares, profits, or losses.
Okay, so I made a plan. It's like the first 3 years plan. Obviously, getting our graphene to different countries is going to take a lot longer than 3 years. But just for the first 3 years, the first one, all 5 of us will be spreading awareness of our group. So like the individual little parts are not going to like come in until the second year. So we have some fundraisers, we recruit members. We will need just basic stuff like paper for flyers and signs. And the amount needed is estimated as $1,000 for the first year. And all of us will just have to make an initial investment of $200. So for the second year, this year will be devoted to making connections and money. We're hoping a business partner will help us raise money or give us some advice on what we can do better. We'll be filing the documents this year and hopefully getting it approved a month later. We'll recruit members, events, fundraisers, and we estimate this will be about $10,000 for this year, and we'll hopefully get that from like our dues, our fundraising donations, stuff like that. For the final year, we've already gotten some people together, and we're basically focusing on fundraising. We'll increase our events, increase our fundraising, and that'll be estimated about $15,000, but we hope to get that from grants, loans, fundraisers, and stuff like that. So I made a chart, sort of thing. And so the first year, like I said, we were to go door to door. We'll make a website and try to reach out on like Twitter or other social media. Second year is again focused on the documents, getting them approved, and then applying for the grants, loans, and corporate sponsorships. Third year, we are increasing our amount of events and fundraisers so we can try to make more money. And then eventually, we will want to reach out to other water companies, maybe for the Austin City first, and then branch out and eventually go around the world helping with graphene.
Some results and expected outcomes. We don't really know what to expect, so we just have to speculate. Some positive outcomes we can expect is that the organization would be approved, so we run it through the state and we officially be a nonprofit organization. That'd be crucial because like if we're not an official organization, people won't really take it seriously, you know? And it'll just be easier to like do things and get to where we want to be. We can like increase like the impact of graphene. So like people would be aware how it can contribute to society. It can help developing countries. You know, just create like awareness of it. We would create other CWA organizations around the country. So within the first 3 years, we can't really go out internationally, but we could be at least like in Texas, if we could be localized, and then like create other organizations around the country in major cities, of course. Increase awareness, so like educate the public of what graphene does and how it contributes to society, and educate them of what it will do. Some negative outcomes we can expect is that people aren't going to be interested in your organization, so that's going to like be a bad thing for us. No one will want to join, no one will really care about graphene, and we won't be able to achieve our goals. People won't understand the purpose of graphene, so like they'll either won't understand how it works or anything, which won't be that bad, because at least they'll understand that it's at least good for society. The thing that would be bad about them not understanding the purpose of it is how it can like impact society and help developing countries. So that would be important too. Lack of funding. Without funding, we can't really like reach out to other cities and then go to where we want to be. And then the organization isn't approved as a nonprofit, so people won't take it seriously. And no one joins. That would be the worst thing, because we don't have members.
And these are our references, and we're done.
Questions, comments, concern?
One of my questions is like, why would it, if it was so like cost efficient and it was so good and all this stuff, like why wouldn't there have already been an organization to promote it, or why isn't it already being used? You know what I mean?
Well,
Sorry, my real question is there like a flaw in it? Is there a flaw?
Well, it's still relatively new, but I guess it's just a little bit, it's not really that expensive, it's a little bit difficult to make it because like they have to make the pores in it by like a process.
Okay.
So it's a really like not detailed, but it's very
tedious.
Tedious.
Okay, so it's tedious but not that expensive. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So it's just like very hard to actually. It's kind of hard to make it, but
Yeah,
it's not
because
that you have to
the
put
pores
in.
have to be a very specific size to let water go through, but not other water.
So would that cost money to make that?
Not really, but it's just a very like,
It's just very specific.
yeah, like,
Okay.
there's a very specific size of the hole that has to have set.
Okay.
And the thing, and also with graphene, it's actually just one atom thing, so it's like really, really thin.
Okay.
So it's also in the production of it, like there's a fair margin of error because of it being so small and thin. Like it's fragile and like it could fold and
So
cause some sort of error.
so there probably will be like a more efficient way to make it like in the future, and that's what y'all are gonna do, right?
Yeah.
Like find a more efficient way to make graphene and all that stuff.
Yeah, because it almost sounds like you can like say your dream case scenario like happens, like some philanthropist is like,
Yeah.
I will give you $2 million to go get a bunch of graphene, get it over to Liberia or wherever. But it sounds like the demand couldn't be met. It sounds like it just takes a long time. It's tedious. The materials doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
So I wonder with your group, like,
Go ahead.
well, I know with your group, and I'm wondering like what the mission should be. Should it be to promote furthering the technology more, getting
Yeah.
what it takes to get it to that point where it can really be used and scaled up? Or is it more so just getting people interested in the idea and maybe that'll trickle down? You know what I mean? Like you can have different missions with your organization in terms of your messaging. Like, everyone, we should care about this, or, you know, people are starving, or, you know, they can't make food because they don't have water.
I think after we start spreading the awareness, I think furthering the technology would like
I
happen
see.
after that because the word is already out and stuff.
Would that be y'all furthering the technology, or do you just like expect like someone like related to it, or someone who maybe like invested in it to further the technology, or is that like y'all's mission to further the technology?
I don't think that's our mission to further technology because we're just trying to create a nonprofit
Alright,
organization.
yeah, you're right.
But it has to have a goal, right? Like you have to know what makes your organization successful. Is it when you can show so that you can get funding? Because, right, you get funding from showing that you're having the impact, right? That you can measure stuff or show that certain things are happening, right? Because of your efforts. I'm wondering, like, what's like one thing you could point to funders and say, you know what, even with this little bit of seed money we have, we did this. You know what I mean? It's kind of sad but true, but measurement is so much about, yeah, kind of getting organizations funded and supported to show, yeah, that something is happening in the world. It's such a challenge to measure that, you know. So you just have to start
It would
clearly.
be even more difficult actually because with graphene membrane as like a new recent underground technology, everything for desalinization, like the plants that are already established and stuff, just like replacing those would be really complicated because there's competition with all these other organizations that want to desalinate water their way instead of the graphene membrane alternative.
Right.
So that'd be even more difficult.
I was
Yeah.
curious, what's in it for the Austin Water Company? It sounded like you wanted to, I wrote my notes, you wanted to reach out to like the Austin Water, whatever they're, what, LCRA, is that what they're called? And I was wondering, like, what's in it for them to promote desalination? Like, is there salt water around here? Because we're kind of, or you know what I mean? Like, what's in it for them? Why would you target them as someone, like, as a stakeholder?
And I think just starting to get out smaller. So we can go, once we maybe have connections, we can go and talk to them and see if they would like to change, and then just kind of see what happens.
Where are they going to get the salt water, though? Like, do they need that technology? Like, is that, you know what I mean, who to target? Like, you know what I mean?
I think
Or is it like Corpus or something like it? You know, someplace where there's salt water, right? I wonder if it's sort of like, I don't know if Austin is your stakeholder. I mean, you'd have to
Probably
think
just, like,
through.
We could use them like as leverage or get something to go to like coastal cities, like Galveston, Houston stuff. They could use this technology, you know, because it'd just be kind of hard to just go straight there. You know what I mean?
Since y'all live here, yeah.
Yeah.
So you think, I see, so you're like, you talk to them and they'll say, hey, we'll make introductions or something to the water company down there. Or,
Yeah. Just like
Really?
connection with them, I guess.
Because Austin's a very eco-friendly city compared to all the cities inside Texas. So if Austin supports something like that, then it'd be much easier for us to reach out and access other coastal cities, like you said, to support graphene membranes. For desalinization.
So what discipline, like, would you be in to say, if you wanted to improve the technology so it's more scalable, like, is this, like, Like what major would you get, or what like is this chemistry? Is this engineering? Like what? Who works on this stuff? Like what disciplines are involved?
I feel like it'd be biology and chemistry.
Some type of
Like-
engineer.
And engineering too, geez.
Biochemistry engineer.
Well, I'll be quiet. I just find it so interesting. There's someone else. I'll zip it. More questions, concerns, comments, accolades.
So can the graphene purify other kinds of water besides salt water?
Yeah, since the pores in the graphene, they're so small, it's small enough to only let water pass through. And since it's so thin, it doesn't require the energy that purifying water requires now. Since graphene is so thin, compared to current membranes that are used that are like about a foot, they're like really, really thick, like significantly thicker than graphene, it would be easier. I wouldn't require as much energy to like purify the water. Since not having to be pushed through such a thick membrane.
But like, could you get out microbes, like purify river water with it? Like, normally you get those camping filtration things. Like, could graphene
depends
do
on the
that?
size, because like I said,
Okay.
we have to make the size, we have to make the holes in the actual sheet first, and then from there, like it depends like what the size of the water molecule is. Like I think I looked when I was doing research. It said like I think it's like 70 nanometers or something like that. But the set of the hole has to be still purified like salt water. So I guess it just depends on what you want to actually take out of the water.
So like after you do that, after that process is done, it goes to the graphene. Would that water be like ready to drink, or like is there going to be like another process?
I believe it should be able to, it's drinkable because before it goes through the graphene membrane, it has to pass through other filtration
Oh,
systems
okay.
to like get rid of like huge particles that maybe
Yeah.
like even bigger than the graphene membrane.
Okay. Like piranhas maybe. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like if you get water out and there's like a piranha in it, you're not gonna put that through a graphene membrane. I don't know.
It'll protect you from piranhas.
Yeah.